Yeah, now I remember why I don't record at the beach, because there's a high probability of nonsense. There's just too many people around. Side streets are pretty good uh, for people allowing you to mind your own business. Um, yeah. So anyway, when I went into this is a little bit more about being in a what do you call it? Mental institution, mental hospital. Uh, I call it the Nut Hut, which the first when I first went in there, I didn't have. It was a great experience for me. I felt a bit like I was getting in the penalty box of life. Like you no longer have to participate in anything that's considered normal, and you can just kind of chill out in sweatpants and walk around in socks and eat ice cream and watch movies. They had like group sessions during the day, and they do this everywhere. And what it does is it just enables you to get released earlier if you go to all these workshops, which are basically sitting around and just doing kind of thought exercises and things like that. But yeah, like I was saying before, there was a commonality between us all with being into like conspiracy stuff, or what's considered conspiracy stuff. As you probably know, that's a term that was coined by the CIA after the JFK assassination to marginalize people who would discuss that event, and it would keep people from listening to those people. And it still works today. I mean, it's still used today. But I didn't catch it at the time, but what was happening is if you go off script, meaning if you start talking about things that generally the sentient reality system as it is doesn't want you talking about, and it's not personal. Same thing when you encounter these entities that are called demons, which they don't have to be called demons. They're just low frequency entities that work within the system. And it's, in my experience anyway, it's not personal. It feels a bit like if you get a cut and the white blood cells rush to repair that cut, whatever you're doing or seeing in the system that is in some way a threat to them, and just being seen or understood or knowing what's happening is considered a threat. They rush to you like white blood cells trying to fix a wound in the system. So it's like, yeah, I had a thing going on. I'm kind of distracted. I don't know why. It's the articulation machine. I've only been up a couple hours, and as I get older, it takes longer to warm up. I'm a lot more coherent by 11:30 p.m., but that doesn't help us right now. Yeah, so back to to what the guy from that band was saying, and he was describing a lot of things that I talk about here and a lot of other people talk about in this field of study as just being a crazy person, because that's what society man. But it's true, they've assigned those words to being the keywords of crazy people. So if they're talking about this stuff, they're absolutely crazy. And I thought the same thing. I mean, I should think the same thing. And turns out that all that stuff is completely real. It's just that the words that are available for use to describe these concepts, whether it's these entities or energy or manifestation, trying to imagine things into reality, it's all kind of coded with words. Well, not coded, the words that are available to use to describe these things have already been preset as either fantasy terms or fictional terms. Or so when you start talking about them, you sound crazy. I get it. And if you're ever stumbling upon this channel out of without knowing any of this stuff or having any experience to hearing people talk about this kind of stuff, I'm sure it sounds nuts. I mean, it sounds nuts anyway. But what these things are, you know, demon is just a, you know, word that is used to describe them. Of course, there is ties to theology with this stuff. These are theological kind of words. A demon, a jinn, in desert terms. But what they are is just fragments of the system that can move on low frequency. And having low frequency in a person manifests when you have lower frequency feelings, and when you're projecting lower frequency things, depression, fear, anxiety, addiction. That's why a lot of times these people see these homeless people screaming on the street. They're like, oh, they're crazy. No, they're probably really infested with these demons, with these entities, because they're around everywhere. There's this guy on YouTube called Roger from KC, and he uses a certain kind of camera to photograph, like for instance, he had a bunch of pictures from around the Hollywood sign in Los Angeles. And by doing something with the film, it shows clearly, when you look at it, images of these fucking things, these beings. Some of them are really huge, like the size of buildings. It's fucking nuts. They're always around, and they're waiting for your frequency to get low enough to slide in and take control of the car or the avatar. They travel on the lower frequencies, and sometimes called dirty energy, hateful, anger, sadness, all that kind of stuff. A lot of times when people who are occultists want to attract demons, they do blood rituals or bloodletting, because the blood attracts them, and the pain of drawing the blood attracts them. I'm not really well versed on the demon tip, on demonology, other than the fact that I've talked to a bunch of them. And I want to get into that after my friend from the North Shore comes down, because he's been with me almost every time I've had one of those experiences. It was usually with him. And I think why it is because we're both seers, you know, we can both see. And that makes like a blip on their radar screen, and they come for us. Originally when I met him, I wasn't a believer in any of this stuff. I didn't, you know, I never really thought of it. I didn't think it was silly, or I wasn't actively, you know, like a hardcore atheist. I do wear a fedora though, quite often. But that's a punk rock thing. That's not an atheism thing. But I get it, you know. I get the meme, you know, I know. But I don't care. Sometimes I don't let memes be my dreams, and I just do what the fuck I want. So I still wear it. But what happens is, so when you talk about this stuff, then you have people that just say you're crazy. And I would have said the same thing. You know, anyone I talk to about this stuff, and it's usually people online. There's only 2 people here on the island that I can talk to this stuff in person with. And I tell my wife about it all. And, she's just kind of like, that's nice. She has a lot of real world concerns. Her parents live here and they're very demanding on their time. Traditional Korean type of family. So the kids are very subservient to the adults. And that's a whole nother thing. I respect that, whatever. I try not to let it get on my nerves because I'm, American. I've grown up with a whole different way of looking at things, and who's to say what's better or worse? I don't know. But yeah, I tell her about things, usually as they happen, because a lot of times I'll be in the house when I come across something, or an experiment I'm working on will come through its natural end. And I'll just be talking to myself more than anything, and I'll relay the information to her. And like the day we saw the blue beam thing out here, it was what I imagine is blue beam, because I know they have that technology at Pearl Harbor. They have a lot of tech there and the reason they have it there is because it's off the mainland and away from a lot of oversight. Hawaii's great for getting away with shit that you can't get away with on the mainland. That's why it's such a big human trafficking hub. And I don't know if I'll touch on that some other time, because I have some interesting discoveries there. I just don't know if I should even talk about that kind of stuff, because it's not really my area of expertise. It's not something I'm really interested in, and it's not something I can really do anything about. But when you start being able to see the strings on everything, things that you may not have noticed become very clear to you. And that's really all there is to say about that. But we don't have better words to describe this stuff. I saw a guy giving a lecture about these subjects, and he had a great name for angels, so you wouldn't have to call them angels. I forget what it was, but it was something simple, an A word. I forget what it was, but it was just so he can discuss these things among his friends, and not, because even if you know it's real and you know you're not crazy, even when you talk about it, like when I like the other day when I made the video about the angels and the demons, even as I'm using the words myself, there's like this inner twinge, like, oh God, that's your subconscious. Because I have that in my subconscious that stuff is the realm of totally crazy people, and they need to straighten up and pay more taxes and watch more TV and just be a good boy. So I get it. It's hard to talk about these things. And I'm finding more that it's probably not really valuable. I talk about it here because I'm just doing videos. But I wouldn't go to someone who is like uninitiated in this stuff and start talking about it, because you just sound mental. And I'm sure if anyone I knew from my past lives that ever knew I was doing videos and talking about this stuff, they'd be like, well, he was always crazy, so they'd probably just laugh, like, oh, he's really lost his mind, huh? And that's fine. You have to come to terms with that this isn't stuff that people really like to hear about or talk about, and there's a stigma attached to all of it. But whatever the name you want to use for these things, when you're having experiences that are undeniable and that are happening right in front of you, and you're interacting with an experience, what are you going to do? Just lie about it and pretend it didn't happen? I don't have that luxury, because most of the major experiences I've had were with other people. So, and who knows, I might my brain might have told me, yeah, forget about it. It was probably a residual from the years you did drugs or something. But oh yeah, my wife with blue beans. They did a blue bean thing here. And what it is if you see this mountain, these mountains right here, above the mountains, where those clouds that were giant green mountains. Mountains above these mountains. And at first I was like, I thought I was seeing like an optical illusion, like it was reflecting these mountains into the sky, but the mountains were different. It wasn't the same mountains. They didn't have buildings on them, and they were much bigger and green. And this was about 5 p.m. You know, around dinner time here, like, and there they were. Like they started way down the end of this canal where the library is, which is way down here, and it went all the way as far as I could see in that direction. So like the whole length almost of the Alawai Canal here, of just mountains, giant green mountains in the sky, and nobody gave a shit. And I was with my wife when I walked out, and I'm like, what the fuck is that? And she's like, I don't know. I'm like, those are mountains in the sky. And she's like, oh yeah, that's weird, huh? I'm like, yeah, that's really weird. Like, what the fuck is that? So I started taking pictures of it, and I had a lot of them. I had them on my old Instagram. Before that, Instagram got shuttered, as most of my Instagrams did, until I've learned to just fly below the radar and work differently. When I first started getting into reporting on these things, I was very open and vocal, and look at this, and I realized quickly that not a lot of people care, and beyond that, there are people that actively don't want you to show stuff like this for whatever reason. I used to get it really bad with circumcision, which is a sore spot for me, because the fuckers took a piece of my dick without asking me for their weird ass fucking ritual. I did a whole video on it one day, and then I pushed out on posting it, because I'm like, this could be taken as anti-Semitic, which is fucking crazy, or anti-Eld, as it is said. and that's how I got, the last two Instagrams I had, personal Instagrams, that's how I got them showed, from circumcision memes. They really love cutting babies' dicks off, and if you fucking have a problem with it, I had like, yeah, I don't know if I want to get into that story. It's fucking crazy. I'll get into it sometime, because as insane as the angels and demons thing sounds, this is crazier, the people that came after me. It sounds insane, but I'll figure out how to tell that story someday. But yeah, so I took a bunch of pictures of it, and I had them on my Facebook, which that Facebook got showed. The Instagram got showed, and for whatever reason, I didn't have them stored on a drive, on one of my virtual drives. I've been using a phone for about 10 years now, so I don't have a computer, which does have its advantages with this kind of stuff. In the same way, you can't keep a lot of stuff, which I guess turns out okay. I've tried to store stuff on my phone before, and I had some really spicy stuff on here that, like, I can't even believe I had. Like stuff that would, in the old world, and this isn't just me, a lot of people had this, that had access to some of this information, like stuff that would be considered state secrets, like really bizarre stuff. And I used to keep them all, but there was a period where I got really paranoid, which I still do sometimes. I have these bouts of paranoia, like, holy shit, oh my God. And during those periods, I deleted everything. I shouldn't say paranoia. That's kind of something in the past for me. more like just looking out. You know what I mean? So yeah, I keep going off the track here with this blue bean story. And but the thing is, no one gave a shit. I was out here staring at it, and with the whole length that I'm showing all here, giant green mountains that went up to where that cloud is, to the top of where that cloud is, in the sky. They didn't look exactly solid. You know what? It kind of looked like how these look, the ones further away that are a bit hazy. It was like that. And this was 5 p.m. And I'm standing in the street just gawking at it, and people are just walking by. No one is looking at it. And I wasn't running around telling people to look at it, but it was fucking right. How could you not look at it? And it stayed there for hours. I walked my wife to work, and I kept looking at it from the streets up there. When I looked between the buildings and looked down to this canal, it was still there. And I forget how long it lasted, but after a point, I'd gotten a bunch of pictures of it, and I was like, all right, well, I don't know. We'll see how long it lasts. And I think when I went out later, it was gone. When nighttime came, you could no longer see it. But it was definitely a projection in the sky. Or something. It was something. I sent some photos to a couple people here on the island that I know through that I know from online. And one guy still might have some copies of it, so I should probably hit him up. But he looked at it and he was like, yeah, I don't know, I'd have to see the picture. And I'm like, dude, that is the fucking picture. What do you mean, not see the picture? What year are we in? But I don't know. Maybe it was just something that, well, I can't say it's something that only I could see because other people saw it. I guess just no one cared. No one, but even if you don't know about Bluebeam or that technology, what the fuck do you think it was? You know, my wife, she knows about this stuff through me, but she was not really impressed. She's like, yeah, that's weird, huh? I showed it to my friend that I talked to this stuff with, one of the only two people I talked to on the island about these kind of matters. And he said to him, because he's really good with geography and maps, he knows this area really well, he knows Hawaii really well. He said to him it looked like parts of the other islands, like whatever the images were, or holograms or whatever. It was like, he said what it looked like by their shape was kind of a mashup of like Maui and parts of Big Island, the mountain range skyline, is what he thought from looking at them. And he's really good with that stuff. But he saw it and he was amazed too. So it was really just me and him. But there are hundreds of people walking around. I noticed a couple people looking at it along the water here. A few people. I think I talked to a guy and his wife, you know, that were kind of looking at it. And I was just like, weird, huh? I think we just exchanged a few words. And that was it. And I saw people glancing over at it. And they just kept on walking, thinking about Cheesecake Factory and fucking Foot Locker or whatever these fucking people think about. Yeah, crazy. So, I guess in conclusion, if I can wrap this all up, even if you do experience things that are considered supernatural or talk about them, you're just always going to look crazy to the average person. And to, again, tag the subject of the non-people, I don't think everyone that isn't on the same page as us are non-people. That's not what I mean. Some of them definitely, like the old Da Vinci quote, like some will see when shown, and some will not see. So some of the people that would call you crazy now, it doesn't mean they're assets or non-people, NPCs. It just means they haven't seen it yet. And if they're shown at the right time or the right, circumstances, they will come around. Because there was a time within the past 10 years that I didn't know about any of this stuff, didn't care about any of it. I certainly never thought any of that existed. I always thought religion and theology was just a cope, because people are going to die and they like to have this fantasy land to help them cope with the fact that they're an organic piece of material that's going to stop functioning, and then everything cuts to black. They did a real good job on me as far as the programming and spellcraft. And when I was that way, I was very, very nihilistic and black-pilled, and I think that leads you to do a lot of high-risk behavior type stuff, because you figure, well, we're only here for 10 minutes or however long we have, so you might as well, do this, that, and the other thing that aren't probably the best for you. And then when you realize that that's all complete bullshit, and it's actually the opposite, that everything you do does matter, and you're kind of the center of the universe, you are, who are hearing these words right now, you're the center of the universe. And I don't mean that in a way like, oh, we're all the center of the universe, man. No, I mean you, personally. Hearing these words wherever you are, this is all for you. I'm not a real person. I'm here for you. I'm here for your experience. Just as you're here for mine. That's very macro. And that's not a place people can go that often, to step back and look at things in that way. But that's what from what I understand and what I've observed and what I believe to be possible, in my opinion, we are all one thing with different points of attraction, and these different points of attention, different points of attention that are expressing themselves as individuals when we're not. We're all one thing. And once whatever happens here, whatever lessons you learn or training you get, we reform back into the other, whatever it is. I can't comprehend that kind of stuff, except that I'm theorizing that we're some kind of offspring or smaller version of some kind of thing. And that's what the experience is about. Leveling up, as it were, to become like whatever the thing is that we're the offspring of. That's a bit out there, and there are some guys that are really good at explaining that, the theory. Anyway, I mean, no one really knows. But I say no one knows, but you do know. As Matt over at Quantum calls it, an inner tuning fork, where you just kind of know. Emotional intelligence, gut instinct, whatever it is. You don't know how you know, but you know. And as I mentioned before, it's because you already have the answers. Not in a hippy-dippy woo-woo way, but all the information is encoded in your DNA, in every fucking cell in your body. It's all there. And it's not a matter of learning from an outside source. It's a matter of recalling the information that you already have. But I'm going 10 different ways here, so I'm going to go in, take a shower, and I'll come back with some more interesting stuff that I wanted to touch on. Once I start going, I could just go. And people have lives, you know what I mean?